The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital buzzed overhead as Dr. Patricia Hernandez closed the manila folder with a finality that felt like a judge's gavel. "I'm sorry, Mr. Castellano," she said, her voice clinical but not unkind. "The spinal cord damage from the accident is complete. Your daughter Lily will never walk again." Vince Castellano, 6'3" of leather, ink, and barely contained fury, stood frozen. His tattooed hands, which had held motorcycle handlebars through 1,000 miles of open road, now trembled as they gripped the back of a plastic hospital chair. Behind him, 3-year-old Lily sat motionless in her brand-new wheelchair, her wide hazel eyes not yet comprehending that her tiny legs, dangling uselessly beneath her strawberry print dress, would never chase butterflies again. "There must be something," Vince's voice cracked, a sound foreign to a man whose reputation in the biker community was built on being unbreakable. "I wish there were," Dr. Hernandez replied, gesturing to the scans illuminated on the wall. "We've consulted with the best neurologists in the state. The damage is irreversible." But 7 floors below, in the hospital's underground parking garage, a homeless boy named Daniel Torres huddled against the cold concrete, clutching a worn medical journal he'd found in a dumpster 3 months ago. His finger traced the same type of spinal injury diagram he'd memorized weeks earlier, the one that didn't match what he'd seen in Lily's discarded chart, and Daniel knew something the doctors didn't. Something impossible. 18 months earlier, Daniel Torres had been a different person. Clean uniform, perfect attendance, honor roll every semester. His mother Isabella would ruffle his hair each morning before school, her laughter filling their small apartment with warmth that made up for everything they didn't have. Then came the accident. A delivery truck ran a red light, and suddenly Isabella was the one in a hospital bed, doctors speaking in hushed tones about permanent paralysis. 12-year-old Daniel couldn't accept it. He spent every night in the public library, devouring medical journals, neuroscience textbooks, anything that might help. He found case studies, experimental therapies, approaches the doctors hadn't mentioned. "Please," he'd begged Dr. Hernandez, the same doctor now treating Lily. "There's a therapy protocol that might work. If we start now." "Son, I appreciate your research, but your mother's injury is beyond what physical therapy can address." But Daniel had been right. Isabella started improving with the techniques he'd pieced together from his research. She took her first step 6 months later, defying every medical prediction. The doctors called it spontaneous recovery. Daniel knew better. The victory came too late. Medical bills had destroyed them. His father had left. Isabella's health complications returned, and she died 3 months after she'd learned to walk again. Daniel ended up on the streets, everything lost except the knowledge no one had believed in. Until the day he saw Lily's accident happen in real time. He'd failed his mother because no one would listen. He wouldn't fail this little girl. Not if he could help it. Night had swallowed the parking garage in shadow when Vince finally emerged, carrying Lily toward his Harley. The wheelchair was folded awkwardly under one arm, his daughter cradled against his chest like she was made of glass. "Daddy, why are my legs sleeping?" Lily's small voice broke the silence. Vince's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "They're just tired, baby girl. Real tired." A movement caught his eye, a figure emerging from behind the dumpster. Daniel froze like a deer in headlights, his backpack clutched defensively. "What the hell are you doing lurking around here?" Vince's voice dropped to something dangerous. I'm not," Daniel stammered, taking a step back. "Looking for cars to break into?" Vince moved forward, protective instinct blazing. "Daddy, don't be scary," Lily whispered. Daniel's eyes met Lily's, and something passed between them. Recognition. "Sir," Daniel's voice shook but held firm. "I know this sounds crazy. But I think I can help your daughter." Vince's bitter laugh echoed off concrete walls. "You kid, get lost before the doctors missed something." Daniel pulled out crumpled papers, Lily's chart. "The spinal compression at L4, L5 isn't complete. There's a 40% intact neural pathway. She can recover. You stole my daughter's medical records. The words came out lethal. Is that the boy who stayed with me? Lily's voice cut through the tension. When I was scared. Daniel nodded. I called the ambulance. I promised I wouldn't leave you. Vince's world tilted. This street kid had saved her life once already. You've got 5 minutes, he growled. Talk fast. Daniel spread his hand-drawn diagrams across the Harley's hood, the parking garage's fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows. His fingers, dirt-stained but precise, traced the spinal column he'd sketched from memory. Look, this is a complete injury, no neural pathways intact. He pointed to one diagram. But this is what Lily has. See the difference? Vince studied the drawings, seeing details that shouldn't exist in a homeless kid's notebook. The doctors classified it as complete because the initial trauma was severe. But I photographed her scans from the recycling. Daniel showed his cracked phone screen. L4, L5 compression with 40% neural pathway preservation. That means with aggressive early intervention, specific physical therapy, electrical stimulation to wake up dormant nerves, neural remapping exercises, there's a real chance. If this works, why aren't doctors doing it? Because it takes 8 to 10 hours a day for months. Insurance won't cover experimental therapy. Most families can't commit that kind of time. Daniel's voice carried the weight of experience. My mom had the same injury. She walked again. Headlights swept across them as Jake Brennan's motorcycle roared up. Vince's second-in-command killed the engine, his face twisted in disgust. Boss, what the hell? You're taking medical advice from street trash. Vince didn't break eye contact with Daniel. He saw something in this kid, desperation mixed with absolute certainty. Jake, back off. The kid knows something. He turned to Daniel. 1 week. Show me results, or you're done. 1 week to prove the impossible. Daniel had 7 days to show that miracles weren't just for people who lived above ground. Vince's garage had transformed into something between a hospital and a hope factory. Equipment cobbled together from medical supply donations, foam mats covering the oil-stained floor, and Daniel's hand-drawn progress charts taped to every wall. The boy who'd slept on concrete now had a couch, the first roof over his head in 18 months. Day 3, Lily lay on the therapy table, Daniel's patient hands guiding her leg through careful movements. Then she gasped. Danny, I felt something. My toes, they're tingly. Vince, who'd been watching from the doorway like a sentinel, stepped closer. You're sure? I felt it, Daddy. Like when your foot wakes up. Day 5 brought the impossible. Lily's toes twitched, small, involuntary movements that made Vince's breath catch. He called Dr. Hernandez that night. She came unofficially, after hours, and examined Lily in the makeshift therapy room. Her professional composure cracked as she tested reflexes that shouldn't exist. This shouldn't be happening, she whispered, more to herself than anyone. Mr. Castellano, I don't know what this boy is doing, but, keep doing it. Word spread through the Iron Saints like wildfire. Some members brought food, offered encouragement. Others, like Tommy, Scarface, Rizzo, confronted Vince outside the garage. You're making us look soft, trusting some street rat with your kid. But Lily had started calling Daniel, Danny, insisting he eat dinner with them, falling asleep holding his hand. Then came the scream. Lily's body convulsed, muscles seizing in violent spasms that turned her father's blood to ice. Daniel's face went pale. He'd seen this before, right before his mother's final crisis. The emergency room lights were too bright, too sterile, too familiar. Lily writhed on the examination table, her small body racked with muscle spasms that made her scream. Vince held her hand while Daniel stood frozen in the corner, watching his worst nightmare replay. Dr. Richard Keller burst through the curtain, his face hardening when he spotted Daniel. Who authorized experimental therapy on this child? His voice could cut glass. Mr. Castellano, are you aware you're letting a homeless teenager play doctor with your daughter? He's helping her. Helping? Dr. Keller gestured at Lily's convulsing form. This is what happens when unqualified people interfere with serious medical conditions. I'm calling Child Protective Services. Hospital administrators arrived within the hour, clipboards and legal threats in hand. Sister Grace Murphy, the hospital chaplain, hovered near the doorway, listening intently. Jake pushed into the room with 3 other club members. Boss, enough. This crazy experiment ends now before you lose her for real. Daniel found his voice, though it shook. The spasms are normal, they mean nerves are waking up. If we stop now, we lose all progress. Please. Please. Dr. Keller's laugh was cruel. You have no medical training, no credentials, no right to. I don't want to stop. Lily's voice, small but fierce, cut through the chaos. Daddy, Danny's helping me. I know he is. Officer Ray Coleman appeared, hand resting on his belt. Got a complaint about vagrant providing medical care to a minor. The officer moved toward Daniel. Vince stepped between them, 6'3" of leather and fury. You want him, you go through me. He turned to the room. We're doing this my way. Danny stays. Vince Castellano had just declared war on the entire medical establishment. And he'd bet everything, including his daughter's life, on a homeless boy's impossible promise. Past midnight, the garage was quiet except for the hum of medical equipment. Daniel sat on the floor surrounded by his notebooks, exhaustion etched into every line of his young face. Vince lowered himself beside the boy, 2 paper cups of gas station coffee between them. Tell me about your mother, Vince said softly. Daniel's hands stilled on the pages. Isabella Torres. She was a waitress, worked double shifts so I could stay in the gifted program at school. His voice cracked. The accident happened on her way to my science fair. She never made it. The whole story spilled out, the research, the dismissed pleas, the brief miracle of her walking, the complications that came too fast, too cruel. She walked for 6 months before complications. 6 months the doctors said were impossible. If I'd been faster, smarter, pushier. He couldn't finish. Vince stared at his own scarred knuckles. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. I know what it's like to feel like you failed someone you love. 2 broken men, sitting in a converted garage, trying to save one little girl. After this is over, you're not going back to the streets, Vince said. You stay. This is your home now. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, the first time anyone had wanted him in 18 months. Vince remembered his own childhood, the motorcycle club mentor who'd seen past the angry kid everyone else had written off. He'd been Daniel once. 1 week from today, we do the public demonstration. Physical Therapy Center, doctors watching. We prove everyone wrong. 7 days until they'd prove the impossible, or lose everything trying. The countdown had begun. The Physical Therapy Center felt too small for the crowd that had gathered. Dr. Hernandez stood near the front, flanked by Dr. Keller and 3 hospital administrators. The Iron Saints Motorcycle Club lined the back wall, leather and chrome and barely contained hope. Officer Coleman watched from the corner, Sister Grace Murphy beside him. News cameras had somehow gotten word, local reporters jockeying for position. Angela Chen, the physical therapist, set up parallel bars in the center of the room. Daniel knelt beside Lily's wheelchair, his voice gentle despite the pressure crushing his chest. Remember everything we practiced. Your legs know what to do. Trust them. Dr. Keller's voice carried across the room. This is irresponsible. The child will be traumatized when she fails. Vince wheeled Lily to the bars, his hands shaking as he locked the wheelchair. You don't have to do this, baby girl. I want to, Daddy. Lily's small hands gripped the parallel bars with fierce determination. Danny says I can. The room fell silent. Daniel positioned himself on one side, Vince on the other. Lily pulled herself to standing, her legs trembling, threatening to buckle. First attempt, her knees gave out. Collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Daniel whispered encouragement. You've got this. Just like yesterday. Second attempt, she locked her knees, bearing her full weight. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Third attempt, she lifted her right foot and took one shaking step forward. The room held its collective breath as she took another step. Then another. Fourth step, fifth step, sixth step, she walked the full length of the parallel bars and collapsed into her father's arms, both of them crying. The room erupted. Applause, tears, disbelief echoing off walls. Dr. Hernandez stared, her professional composure shattered. I don't understand how this is possible. Daniel, quiet amid the chaos, it's possible because someone believed her. The girl they said would never walk had just walked. And the boy they said was nobody had just changed everything. 3 months later, Lily ran through the park like she'd been born to fly. Her laughter carried on the spring breeze as she chased butterflies through patches of wildflowers, her legs strong and sure beneath her. No wheelchair. No limitations. Just a little girl who'd learned that impossible was just a word doctors used when they'd given up. Daniel watched from a picnic table where textbooks lay open, advanced placement biology, physics, chemistry. Vince sat beside him, helping quiz him on molecular structures. The homeless boy who'd slept in parking garages now had his own room in the Castellano house, his own desk, his own future. Sister Grace Murphy had secured a full scholarship fund for Daniel's college education. Dr. Hernandez had published a groundbreaking paper on Lily's case, crediting Daniel's intensive therapy approach. The hospital had created a new program based on his methods, the Torres protocol, they called it. Other, impossible, cases were being referred to him for consultation. Families traveled from 3 states away to meet the teenage boy who'd proven the medical establishment wrong. Angela Chen had offered Daniel a paid internship at the therapy center. At 14, he was teaching licensed professionals techniques he'd learned from desperation and grief. Jake Brennan approached the picnic table, his usual scowl replaced with something softer. I was wrong about you, kid. Dead wrong. Tommy, Scarface, Rizzo, tears streaming down his weathered face, you saved the boss's little girl. Your family now. Always will be. Officer Coleman handed Daniel a small plastic card, his first official ID. You're not invisible anymore, son. That evening, Lily's 4th birthday party filled the garage-turned celebration space. Motorcycle club members mixed with hospital staff, former doubters now believers. Vince stood to make a toast, his arm around Daniel's shoulders. A year ago, I thought I knew what strength looked like. Leather, tattoos, never showing weakness. His voice cracked. Turns out it looks like a skinny kid who refused to give up when the whole world told him he was nobody. The crowd erupted in applause, but Vince raised his hand for silence. There's something I need to show you all. He pulled out his phone, pressed play on a video. The screen showed St. Mary's Hospital, but not the gleaming entrance. The underground parking garage. Level 7. The same corner where Daniel had lived for 18 months. I went back there yesterday, Vince said. To the place where a miracle started in the darkest corner nobody looks at. The video panned across the concrete where Daniel used to sleep. Someone had painted a mural, a massive, beautiful piece of street art. It showed a small figure surrounded by medical books, light radiating from his hands. Above it, in bold letters, miracles happen where you least expect them. Below that, smaller text, Daniel Torres slept here. Now he's saving lives. Don't overlook the invisible. Daniel stared at the screen, tears streaming down his face. Lily climbed into his lap and hugged him tight. That's you, Danny. You're the miracle. The therapy center had a waiting room full of families now. Not just one child, but 7, 8, 12. Parents who'd been told impossible and refused to accept it. News coverage of Lily's recovery had sparked something, a movement of people who believed that maybe, just maybe, their children deserved a fighting chance. Daniel stood in the center, clipboard in hand, coordinating with Angela Chen and 2 new physical therapists they'd had to hire. Dr. Hernandez had left the hospital to work with Daniel full-time, saying she'd learned more from a homeless teenager than 20 years of medical school. A 7-year-old boy named Marcus sat in his wheelchair, the same hollow-eyed despair Lily had once carried. His mother gripped the armrests so tight her knuckles were white. Lily walked up to Marcus, crouched down to his eye level. I couldn't walk either. But Danny helped me. And he's gonna help you too. Daniel knelt beside the wheelchair, his voice gentle. Your mom told me the doctors said you'd never walk. They told me that about someone I loved too. And you know what? They were wrong. Marcus looked up at him with the first spark of hope. Really? Really? But I'm gonna need you to trust me and work harder than you've ever worked. Can you do that? The boy nodded. Daniel smiled, the real kind, the one that reached his eyes. Then let's prove them wrong together. Late at night, Daniel and Vince stood in the parking garage, level 7, staring at the mural. Daniel's backpack, the same one he'd carried for 18 months, lay at their feet. I keep it to remember, Daniel said quietly. That I was here, that this happened. Vince put a hand on his shoulder. You're not that kid anymore. I know. But he's still part of me. The part that knows what it's like to be invisible. Daniel turned to face his new father. There are thousands of kids sleeping in places like this tonight. Smart kids. Talented kids. Kids who could change the world if someone just saw them. So what are you gonna do about it? Daniel looked at the mural, then back at Vince. I'm gonna make sure they're not invisible anymore. Every kid I help walk again, I'm gonna tell them about this place. About how miracles don't care where you sleep or what you look like or whether society thinks you matter. Vince pulled him into a hug. Your mom would be so proud of you. I think about her every day. Every kid I help walk, that's for her. They walked back to the motorcycle together, leaving the parking garage behind but never forgetting it. Because that cold concrete corner wasn't just where a homeless boy had slept. It was where a miracle had been born. They said it was impossible. They said a homeless boy couldn't save a paralyzed girl. They said miracles don't happen in parking garages. They were wrong about all of it. Because Vincent Castellano's daughter didn't just learn to walk again, she learned that heroes don't always wear white coats. Sometimes they wear torn sneakers and carry everything they own in a backpack. Sometimes they sleep in parking garages and eat from dumpsters. Sometimes they're the ones everyone overlooks. Until the day they do the impossible. Today, the Torres protocol has helped 47 children walk who were told they never would. Daniel Torres, now 17, splits his time between finishing high school and training medical professionals in his techniques. Lily Castellano runs track at her elementary school. And in parking garages across the country, murals are appearing with the same message. Don't overlook the invisible. Your miracle might be sleeping on concrete. This story reminds us that extraordinary people exist in the most ordinary, and overlooked, places. Subscribe to never miss another story that proves miracles are real. Because somewhere right now, someone is doing the impossible. And their story deserves to be told. If Daniel's story inspired you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. Turn on notifications so you never miss a miracle.